that could happen is like toxins. In the Bible, there's the four horsemen. They're traveling to Earth, and the closer they get, the more gravity weighs on the position of which of the four horsemen reaches first. One of them is war, and then the other three are other things. But the important thing to understand is the weight behind it. I saw that this fly, it got a gene, and then this fly having a gene was able to bypass the very thing it was getting keeped out of from this plant. All plants have this natural ability to keep flies out because they obtain this toxic secretion from the soil after them being alive before flies. That's just how the evolution rolled out. And so if it weren't so, on planet Earth, the worst of four if all horsemen got here at all the same time. So remember in Thor, Asgard, they have that bridge? These are things that are extravagant in physics because we're not there yet. The people wanting that to be there will sometimes go ultra dimensional and make everyone feel like they're in a glass house of emotion. And when this is handled, it's not defining what spaghettification would be in a string theory. So just as the Northern Lights occurs over Canada, the reason it doesn't occur everywhere is because the region in Canada has magnetospheres proper for it to occur. If you put those same magnetospheres across the globe, the entire globe would experience the Northern Lights. An existence trace. The Northern Lights are oddly similar to how a rainbow is, except it's stretched out over vast areas of land. This picture within the majority sort of resembles how a sunset is a partial spectrum of a northern light. In which case, rainbowbright would be able to be walking around the entire region, treating it as if it were a rainbow. So abrasion systems are the cream of the crop. Let's back to the printing press on how that was a revolution. It could entail all these frictions of handwriting in one fell swoop. So in the next 1,000 years, the advance would be of, again, once handling friction, but in a half of a fell swoop. I'm always wondering the origin story of one of the best abrasion stories of handling friction, that of rainbowbright. She's able to walk on thin air simply by being on top of a rainbow. Wonder the origin story of her. How did that even occur? I guess in friction stories such as Spider-Man, he got bit by a spider, gained superpowers. Sleeping Beauty, she ate a poison apple, and the rest is history for her. But for rainbowbright, what happened in her origin story was she sucked into a candy land and treated like a Frankenstein and came out with super abilities under her feet. Satellites are super invasive and they go under disguise because they're above your head. How invasive would the best satellites be? They can only be so great because they're bound by the law of physics, mainly an inverse square law. In distances, it's hard to see how much it is. Are things that are small, and things are allowed to be small if they have a discrete pattern. The dots on the bushes are different than the dots on a flat wall, and it's harder to detect the both unless you go up close. Association is a powerful tool. Something as strong as a relation can build a solution off of free energy. If I was to grab something and you didn't know why it was like getting stronger the more I kept walking in a circle, all that entails is just that I'm emulating a vortex. I was astonished to figure out the crystals are so vast in anything that is growing in rows. Little did I know, things are defined so discreetly, like rocks being anything that's solid and is naturally formed is a rock. So how many things, if you're utilizing an entire particle of tables, would be able to deduct an arrow of time with all the free energy that the universe had to provide? On how vortexes are so important is because out of distance, the interplay of out of focus makes it look realistic, where a vortex only needs a closed system in order for it to encounter an actual magnitude. This is sticks that are emulating a star. Even though it isn't an actual star, you see the iconic image of it. And this is what is enough for the person to read the gist. These iconic images are something that we all are familiar with when it comes to style. This picture looks like the Little Caesars icon, even though it isn't. You can definitely make the relation. So like, no one's concerned about their own health when there's like a puppy in the road. They look to the puppy to save it. So the following is just a whole bunch of fairy houses. These are used, if you wanted a fairy to have a house, you never see them because they're invisible, of course. Getting excited about making it all natural because fairies are supposed to come from nature, so they would want an all natural house. And having the interior be just as like well designed as the outside, so it's not all just window dressing. The more that you can make it natural, it would be happier for the person making it because they'll feel like they accomplished more. In doing so, it opens the door of how many things in your house are natural. I saw a dog in molten rubber, and it looks so artificial because molten rubber is artificial. So I'm trying to be eloquent because things that are embarrassing are just covered in things that people don't know too much about. But it's counterintuitive because in order to define something new, you've got to find one thing that everyone knows about. In order to add a few more things, you have to make it illustrious. So this region is a major division in all of the marine environments of Earth, and they're all separated. But this is specifically interesting because scientists call this area colder and denser, but less salty than the rest of the ocean. So within this vortex, you're able to achieve phenomenon that shouldn't be occurring, but is. If the water is colder and denser, you would expect it to be more salty. In order to be colder without freezing, the water needs to be as salty as possible. But this is less salty and it is colder. It's only allowed to do that because of it has an enclosed vortex. This is an environment that mimics a turbine. Anything that's closed has a specific dynamic of vacuum-like structure, and so the pole has a current that's so cold that it acts as a vortex. Especially if you're introducing semiconductive activity like a photoelectric effect with something it doesn't even have to be copper. It could be an emotion that is a potential of copper and emulate the same phenomenon as a photoelectric effect. and is basically just electrons shooting out everywhere. And if you have electrons shooting out everywhere, it emulates a random number generator, which then anything can occur. So I only mention that is because vortexes can occur from anything. It's just a momentum of velocity. Having a closed loop system, it can involve solid, liquid, or gas, or a potential of any of them spinning all together. Time looking no different than a regular day in the life.